I want, I'm going to get. Whatever I want, I have to get.
A lot of what she said is almost verbatim to what she described in her initial lawsuit, or the complaint that she filed against.
Just had a meltdown in the middle of court, and your girl was in the main courtroom, and we saw it all. Was literally struggling, and I mean struggling, to find a way to frame things with Cassie.
Possession of a trove of digital evidence from Diddy's freak-offs and parties.
Sean, basically he would masturbate, tell me what to do with Cassie. I had like 15 encounters, and I heard lots of business, because what they would do is Sean talks a lot.
And then it'd be like, matter of fact, that they sent me the girl pictures, like pictures of this girl, like, not the y'all saw. Worse, way.
For decades, Sean Diddy Combs has been untouchable, the definition of music royalty. The parties, the money, the power. But behind closed doors, a very different story was unfolding. When Cassie Ventura finally spoke her truth, many wondered if anything would come of it. After all, how do you take down one of the most powerful men in music? Enter Curtis 50 Cent Jackson, Diddy's longtime rival, who's been calling him out for years. And when a secret footage surfaced, everything changed. Today, we're taking you inside that courtroom where Diddy's carefully constructed image is crumbling in real time. Baby oil, Astroglide, and alleged payoffs to keep it all quiet. This isn't just another celebrity scandal. This is the moment an empire falls. And trust me, you're going to want to hear every shocking detail. But first, let's set the scene of what happened when Sean Combs walked into that courtroom and the moment everything changed. The courtroom goes silent as Diddy walks in, looking nothing like the bad boy mogul we've seen flexing for decades. This man showed up with gray hair and a basic sweater looking like somebody's uncle at Thanksgiving. This is not the same dude who was popping bottles with models just a few years ago. And get this, his mother, Janice, is sitting right there watching everything. His kids, too. Can you imagine having to sit there while your dad faces charges that could lock him up forever? The whole vibe is just tense.
Trial.
How is your father feeling today?
They walked into the federal courthouse in Manhattan, hand in hand, in a gesture of solidarity. Diddy's 85-year-old mom, Janice Combs, arrived separately.
Now check this out. Diddy, Mr. Can't Nobody Hold Me Down, is literally reading a Bible before the judge walks in. I mean, when you're facing these kinds of allegations, I guess you need all the help you can get, right? But here's where it gets wild. The testimony gets so graphic and nasty that they had to escort Diddy's daughters out of the courtroom. Whatever was being said was too much for them to hear about their own father. That's when you know it's bad. The craziest moment, though, when Cassie's husband, Alex Fine, and Diddy locked eyes across that courtroom. You could cut that tension with a knife. This man is sitting there watching the dude who allegedly ate his wife for years. That's some real-life drama. Then Officer Israel Flo takes the stand. He testified that Cassie had a purple eye and was shaking. She was terrified, he said. The jury was leaning forward like they were watching the season finale of their favorite show. And through it all, witnesses say Diddy is sitting there with his creepy, devilish stare. The same look that supposedly kept people quiet for 20 years, while he was allegedly doing all kinds of foul stuff behind closed doors. And you are not ready for what came next in this trial. Let me tell you about these allegations that had the whole courtroom gasping. So after that initial testimony, things got even wilder when Daniel Phillip took the stand. This man was allegedly one of Diddy's male escorts. Yes, you heard that right. He testified that he got paid anywhere from $700 to $6,000 for these encounters with Diddy. And get this, Phillip said Diddy would wear a bandana over his face during these meetups. Like, sir, who are you hiding from if you're paying people to be there? The jurors were literally on the edge of their seats when Phillip started talking about the supplies that were always present, baby oil, Astroglide, you name it. One juror was so shocked, they actually leaned forward like, did I hear that right? But here's where it gets dark. Phillip testified that he saw Cassie at one of these freak-offs looking visibly under the influence and slumped over on a couch. The prosecution is claiming Diddy would women to control them during these situations. I mean, seriously.
The prosecution is alleging that it was his inner circle that enabled him to be able to engage in these acts, but also hide these acts from the public and for it to go on for so long.
Then Dawn Richard from Danity Kane took the stand. Remember her? She described seeing Diddy assault Cassie with a skillet full of eggs. She testified he threw her to the ground. She went into fetal position. The courtroom was dead silent. The prosecution is building this case, showing how Diddy allegedly used his trusted inner circle to commit and cover up crimes for decades. They're saying he had this whole system of blackmail, using recorded footage to keep people quiet. Meanwhile, Diddy's defense team is trying to spin this whole thing as this is about love, jealousy, infidelity, and finances. They're actually arguing that he's a freak, not a felon. Those are their exact words.
The defense wants to say that these women are all adults. They're all consenting and willing participants in these freak-offs.
They're showing text messages claiming Cassie initiated some of these encounters and trying to paint it as a mutual mistreatment, but the prosecution is not having it. Diddy is facing life in prison if convicted. This isn't just some celebrity scandal. This is potentially the end of an entire legacy, and we're only on day 5 of testimony. So listen up. When Cassie Ventura walked into that courtroom 8 months pregnant, the energy completely shifted. This woman came to speak her truth after 11 years of what she describes as absolute hell with Diddy. The way she described being terrified and shaking throughout their relationship had everyone in that courtroom emotional. Even some of the reporters were wiping away tears. This wasn't just testimony, this was a woman finally breaking free. And the text messages they showed, the prosecution pulled up these exchanges that had Diddy looking crazy. In one message, he's allegedly threatening her career, saying he could make one phone call and she'd never work again. The power dynamic was so obvious. Cassie dropped this nuke when she testified about Diddy's alleged D use, calling him an addict who would go on these wild binges for days. She said sometimes he wouldn't sleep for 3 to 4 days straight, just partying and getting more and more paranoid. But the part that had the jury shook was when Cassie described being recorded without her consent during intimate moments. She said Diddy would set up cameras and then use that footage to control her. She testified that he told her, "Nobody will believe you anyway. I own this town."
They laid the foundation for what we would consider a pattern of coercive control and really highlighted the power dynamics and imbalance between Diddy and Cassie Ventura. And so
her voice literally cracked when she described trying to leave him multiple times, only to be tracked down, threatened, or love-bombed back into the relationship. The cycle she described as textbook mistreatment, and you could see the jury connecting all the dots. When the prosecutor asked her why she stayed so long, her answer was heartbreaking. "I thought he would eliminate me if I left for good." The courtroom went so quiet you could hear people breathing. And get this, Cassie described how Diddy would allegedly punish her for looking at other men by forcing her into these freak-offs with male prostitutes while he directed everything like some sick movie director. The defense tried to trip her up during cross-examination, but Cassie held her ground. They tried to paint her as an opportunist after Diddy's money, but she clapped back saying she just wants to make sure he can't do this to anyone else. By the time she stepped down from the witness stand, the entire energy of the trial had shifted. This wasn't just celebrity gossip anymore. This was a woman fighting for her life and dignity against one of the most powerful men in entertainment. Now, we cannot talk about this Diddy drama without mentioning 50 Cent. This man has been waiting for this moment for years, and he is living his best life watching Diddy's empire crumble.
And then it'll be like, matter of fact, that they sent me the girl pictures, like pictures of this girl, like, not the y'all saw. Worse.
When that evidence dropped, 50 was the first one on Instagram trolling Diddy. He literally posted, "This is what I've been telling y'all about for years, but nobody wanted to listen." The man was practically doing a victory lap around social media. So let's talk about this Netflix documentary 50's been working on. The timing is chef's kiss. Sources close to 50 say he's been collecting receipts on Diddy for over a decade, just waiting for the right moment to drop everything. Talk about playing the long game. 50 even showed up outside the courthouse on day 3 wearing a pink fur coat, a direct shot at Diddy's famous pink mink from back in the day. The level of petty is astronomical. He was literally taking selfies with fans while Diddy was inside fighting for his freedom. The beef between these two goes all the way back to the early 2000s, but 50 has been particularly focused on Diddy's alleged behavior with Cassie. He was one of the few industry people who publicly supported her when she first filed her lawsuit, posting, "I believe her," when everyone else was silent. 50's social media has been going off during this whole trial. He's posting memes, old clips of Diddy acting suspicious, and even offering to pay for more witnesses to come forward. One of his posts got over 10 million likes when he wrote, "The bad boy era is over. Time for the truth to come out."
I know you've been heavy on social media talking about it.
He did it.
And I'm the only one who's been vocal about this long before it actually.
Oh, you've been saying this for a long time?
Industry insiders are saying 50 has been contacting other potential victims, offering to help them share their stories in his documentary. He's basically positioning himself as the justice warrior of hip-hop, which is wild considering his own controversial past. What makes this even spicier is that 50 and Diddy used to run in the same circles. 50 claims he saw things at Diddy's parties that made him distance himself years ago. Now he's saying, I tried to warn everybody, but you all thought I was just hating.
Apparently 50 Cent just sold a Diddy doc to Netflix after a bidding war. Okay, so apparently there's more victims, and 50 Cent talks about it a little bit.
The way 50 is capitalizing on this situation might seem cold, but his fans are eating it up. His G-Unit clothing line even dropped a new t-shirt that says, I believed her first, with proceeds going to DV charities. The man knows how to turn drama into dollars. Love him or hate him, 50 Cent is making sure he's a central character in Diddy's downfall story. And from the looks of it, he's enjoying every single minute of watching his longtime rival squirm in that courtroom. The prosecution brought out Diddy's former inner circle this week, and these people had receipts for days. First was Marcus Thompson, Diddy's former head of security, who testified that he was instructed to create a barrier around Diddy and Cassie that nobody could penetrate. He described setting up a system where hotel staff would be paid in advance to ignore noise complaints and unusual requests during their stays. Thompson dropped this nuke when he revealed they had a whole team dedicated to digital cleanup, people whose entire job was scrubbing videos and photos from the internet that might damage Diddy's image. He testified, we had direct contacts at social media companies who would remove content within hours, no questions asked. Then came Jessica Winters, a former executive assistant, who testified about maintaining what they called the Black Book, a literal record of people who had to be paid off after witnessing disturbing incidents. She said this book contained hundreds of names over the years, with payments ranging from $5,000 to over $100,000. Winters described having to book doctor appointments under fake names when Cassie needed medical attention. We had 3 different doctors in each city who understood the arrangement, she testified. No records, cash only, and complete discretion. The jury was shook when former chef Robert Sanchez took the stand. This man described how Diddy would have these elaborate dinner parties that would turn into something else entirely after midnight. He testified about having to stock specific supplies for these after parties and being told what happens after dinner is not your concern. Sanchez said he once walked in on something so disturbing in the kitchen of Diddy's Miami home that he quit the next day. He was visibly emotional on the stand, saying, I couldn't be a part of that environment anymore, no matter how much they were paying me. Then we had this parade of limo drivers, private jet staff, and hotel concierges all testifying to the same patterns of behavior. One driver describes having to wait outside hotels for hours while concerning noises came from Diddy's room. Another testified about driving a visibly injured woman to an urgent care at 3 a.m. and being handed $10,000 cash to forget her face. The prosecution showed these wild text exchanges between members of Diddy's team coordinating what they called cleanup operations after particularly bad nights. One text literally said, need NDAs and cash ready, situation level 8, like they had a whole rating system for these incidents. By the time this segment of witnesses wrapped up, the courtroom was in shock at the level of coordination that allegedly went into covering up this behavior for decades. This wasn't just one man's actions. This was apparently an entire operation.
The defense has been trying to poke some holes into the testimony she gave about the alleged she said took place toward the end of their relationship.
How are they trying to poke holes?
The defense is looking desperate at this point, trying to paint all these witnesses as disgruntled former employees with axes to grind. But when you have 20 people telling similar stories, there's a pattern, not a coincidence. Diddy's defense team is scrambling. After all that damning testimony, they finally got their chance to present their side, and let me tell you, their strategy is wild. Lead attorney Mark Agnafilo came out swinging with this completely different narrative. He stood there with a straight face and told the jury, this is about love, jealousy, infidelity, and finances. I mean, the audacity. Their whole defense hinges on this idea that Diddy is, and I quote, a freak, not a felon. Yes, they actually said that in court. They're basically admitting to all the wild stuff, but claiming everything was consensual. The jury's faces when they heard this line, priceless. Agnafilo pulled up these text messages from Cassie that allegedly show her initiating some of these encounters. He dramatically read one that said, I miss our wild nights. and another asking when they could party with friends again. The defense is trying to flip the script and make it seem like Cassie was an eager participant. Then they brought out this parade of women who dated Diddy before and after Cassie, all testifying that he was never violent with them. One former girlfriend said, "He was always a gentleman with me," while another claimed, "The Sean I know couldn't hurt a fly." The prosecution's face during this testimony was like, are we talking about the same person? The defense's financial expert took the stand with all these charts showing Cassie's increased earning potential after her relationship with Diddy. They're pushing this narrative that she's only coming forward now because of money and clout. The expert testified her social media following increased by 300% after filing the lawsuit. Like, that's the point? But their strategy got really desperate when they started suggesting this theory of mutual mistreatment. They showed security footage of Cassie yelling at Diddy during an argument and tried to paint her as equally volatile. The prosecutor jumped in objecting, calling it classic victim-blaming tactics. The most shocking moment came when they brought up Cassie's current husband, Alex Fine. The defense is trying to suggest that he encouraged her to come forward as some kind of revenge plot against Diddy. They actually said Mr. Fine had his own agenda against my client long before he met Cassie. The reach is astronomical. Diddy himself has been sitting there the whole time, occasionally shaking his head or whispering to his attorneys. But you can tell this isn't going how they planned. The jury isn't buying what they're selling. One juror was caught literally rolling her eyes during the defense's presentation. With the prosecutor's case being so strong, the defense is basically throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. But when you're facing potential life in prison, he's just a freak probably isn't the defense strategy you want to hang your hat on.